there, my friends. Well, we are in the depths of tummy troubles as a newborn right now. So, if you're wondering why I went MIA yesterday, I did not. I made the video at like 8:30 p.m. when Dustin finally was able to like soothe her enough so that I could go in my closet and make the video for Job chapter 39 and 40, but it would not upload for some reason to YouTube. Took forever. And then when it finally uploaded to YouTube, I went to upload it to Patreon and it would not work. Like, it would not go through. And so I'm taking that as a sign that I need to go back and watch that, because something that I said may have been out of line or something. And maybe God was like, "Nah, girl, you too sleepy to be talking about my truth right now. You got to be in your whole right mind for that." I'll have to do like a live update, but something is causing her to have tummy trouble, and she's not sleeping, so I'm not sleeping. So anyways, we're in the newborn trenches right now, but it's okay. She's so worth it in her little self. But anyways, Job chapter 39 and 40, and I also have to do 41 and 42 today. But Job chapter 39 is basically God pointing out a bunch of different things about creation and animals to Job in like the perspective of Job. Like, you don't understand that I know all of these pieces about how all of this works together. And to be honest, just reading all of that, it blew my mind, because I was like, what do you get out of that? Like, how do you use that to teach or to get a lesson out of that? And I sat for a minute with it, and the only thing that I could possibly come up with was, how much more does he know you and work this for his purpose and glory? Whatever season you're in right now, whether it be a mountaintop or a valley, think about how awesome our God is, and how all-knowing and all-powerful, and like, he even knows that the ostrich is so flippantly not protective of her young. Like it talks about in verses 13 through 18, how she leaves her eggs to the earth and lets them be warmed on the ground, forgetting that a foot may crush them and the wild beast may trample them. She deals cruelly with her young as if they were not hers. Though her labor be in vain, yet she has no fear. So even though the ostrich has went through all of this to produce these eggs, to make these eggs that God has given her, mind you, and she just lays them on the ground. And then the study notes actually say that if her nest gets disrupted, or if she feels like there's like an enemy or an attacker coming, like sometimes she will actually crush her own eggs in the anticipation of like a attacker coming to get her young. Isn't that wild? And then it tells us why in verse 17, okay? Because usually nature like protects their young, right? Like, you think about a bear, you come up on a baby cub, there's a mama cub somewhere, and like, you better get, like, don't mess with it. I think about this story, this is hilarious, but my sister, one time we were outside and she was young, and we were at our house, and oh gosh, what was it? It was some kind of bird. I think it was a chicken. And there were like these little baby chicks around, and she was like trying to mess with the baby chicks, and the mama chick, the hen, came out and like attacked Reagan, and it made her terrified of birds for like the longest time, because she got attacked by this mama hen for messing with her baby chicks. And like, that's usually how God has made us and animals and all that, to protect our young, but the ostrich doesn't. And God goes on and tells Job in verse 17, because God has made her forget wisdom and given her no share in understanding. So God even knows why the ostrich does that, and why the ostrich is different from even other birds like the mama hen, because that's how he made her. He kept her from having that protective instinct to protect her young instead of destroy them. And it says, though her labor be in vain, yet she has no fear. Like, the ostrich isn't worried about her lineage continuing. She isn't worried about like all of the things that we worry about as mothers. But then she is fast as lightning. So just because she's ignorant in that part of her creation or being created, okay, she is fast as lightning. Like 40 miles per hour can outrun a horse fast, okay? So God has given her strength in other areas that are more normal or we think are more natural. She is weak in because God did not give her wisdom in that part, but did give her strength in her speed and agility and things like that. Why? We don't know. God doesn't tell us, like, this is why I did that to the ostrich. Like, so many times we're like, that doesn't make sense. And God's like, who are you to tell me how to do the things that I do? That's a life lesson in and of itself, right? This was a very hard chapter for me to dissect if you can't see that. Then in verses 26 and 27, it says, is it by your understanding that the hawk soars and spreads its wings towards the south? Is it at your command that the eagle mounts up? Just think about that for a second. Like, I don't even know that there's anything to break down there. It's just awesome that our Creator knows and understands that the hawk soars and spreads its wings toward the south. And at the command, the eagle mounts up and nests on these rocks. Like, have you ever thought about that? Like, how God not only orchestrates our life, but like the lives of all of the animals. Like, God is so sovereign over every piece of his creation. Every single piece of his creation, like the deer having their babies and all of these different pieces of how all of this stuff fits together. Like, God is so sovereign and knowledgeable and actually commands all of that. And yet, as image bearers, we question how he is in this season of our life. Like, God, where are you in this season of my life? Like, how are you going to help me in this season of my life? When he's like, do you not see that I am orchestrating all of creation, that I am sovereign over every part of creation? And you're wondering how I can help you. Like, look at the big picture. Earlier, we found out that, like, the waves only go so far on the seashore because that's how God made it. This is how far you can go, and you stop. And then we see how he not only commands that, but he commands actual nature, the animals, and orchestrates all of that. And yet we look at our life and think, God's not big enough. Sorry, y'all. God's not big enough to handle this part. Why? Why do we do that? Why do we question him like that? Just like Job did, you know? I'll just say this, like, for years, I questioned whether this little tiny human would be in my arm because of the statements made by human doctors. Like, be thankful that you have one child because you probably won't ever have another one. And here she is, you know? Like, why do we think God's not big enough to handle the desires that he puts in our heart? Like, why do we think that he is not good or big enough to handle the things that we are praying to him about? Like, do we realize who we are praying to? And then in chapter 40, God says, hey, Job, respond to me, basically. And in verses 3 and 4, it says, then Job answered the Lord and said, behold, I am of small account. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand on my mouth. I have spoken once, and I will not answer twice, but I will proceed no further. Job's like, I have been humbled. I have been corrected. How I would say that is like if God said, hey, Ashley, respond to what you just learned about me. My response would be, I stand corrected. I stand completely corrected and humbled. Then the Lord challenges Job, and in verse 8, we kind of see like a connection to Elihu here. Remember when we talked about with Elihu saying that Job was basically putting God in the wrong because he was putting himself in the right so much that it made God look unjust by what was happening to Job? Well, God actually says the same thing to Job. He says in verse 8, will you even put me in the wrong? Will you condemn me that you may be in the right? And he goes on verses 9 through 14 and like hammers that in a little bit more. Have you an arm like God? And can you thunder with a voice like his? Adorn yourself with majesty and dignity. Clothe yourself with glory and splendor. Pour out the overflowings of your anger and look on everyone who is proud and abase him. Look on everyone who is proud and bring him low, and tread down the wicked where they stand. Hide them all in the dust together. Bind their faces in the world below. Then I will also acknowledge that your own right hand can save you. God's like, you can't do these things. He's telling Job, he's challenging him, like, do it. And if you can do these things, which is impossible for us to do, then I will acknowledge that you can save yourself. But we can't save ourselves. Like, we can't bring good things about unless God allows those good things to be brought out of the things that we do. Have we justified ourselves so much before people that we have made God look unjust because of the suffering that we faced? And I think if I could summarize how we have failed as a Western church, as a Western Christianity body, this is it. That anytime we have to go through something, we pout and we say we don't deserve it. And by doing that, by preaching the prosperity gospel, the name it, claim it, blab it, grab it type thing, what we are teaching the rest of the world is that if you have to go through hard things, God is really not good. He's not good. It's because we focus on our circumstances and not his character. Our emphasis is on what we are going through, not who is walking with us through it. That is how we make God look unjust and unkind. So anyway, I say all that to say, I guess my biggest lesson and my biggest takeaway from today is to be aware that God is sovereign over your situation. Whatever you're going through, whatever you're facing, God is sovereign over it. No matter if it's something that you classify as big or small, God is sovereign over it. If he can handle all of creation all at one time, he can handle what you're walking through. He is handling what you're walking through. Why don't you just lay it at your feet and stop trying to do it yourself? I'm talking to myself. And then number 2 is stop justifying how right you are in a way that makes God look wrong. We have to stop trying to make ourselves so self-righteous, and really it just stems from pride and wanting to peacock around like we're better than we actually are, when in reality we're all just sinners saved by grace, and the world would be such a better place. We would reach so many more people for the gospel if we stopped trying to justify ourselves, and if we started just preaching the goodness of our God. If we stop trying to make ourselves look better than we really are and just realize that none of us are better than anybody else. We're all just sinners saved by grace. We are all in desperate, desperate need of a Savior. I love you guys, and I want you to remember that everything that happens, everything that God is sovereign over, all of your circumstances are for our good and for his glory. And I will see y'all next time.